I got into an argument with a retard on Twitter today about the Z targeting system, because obviously the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time invented the Z targeting system. It was fluid, it was immersive, it was easy to use. People picked it up immediately. It was a huge revolution when it came to the way 3D action games are played. And to this day, it's still the industry standard. It's how we experience 3D games. But this has been a point of contention with a lot of Twitter weirdos, the same sort of people who try to argue that Miyamoto was influenced by Tower of Draga or whatever when making The Legend of Zelda. It's a giant code. The idea is that targeting systems existed in games before Zelda, and that means that Zelda did not invent Z targeting. This is not true and really needs to be spelled out and ignored. Okay, the way the lock-on system works in Tomb Raider is that Lara just faces an enemy and shoots them. Okay, it doesn't have the nuance of Zelda. It doesn't introduce strafing. It doesn't introduce all the mechanics, all the different variations of what the Z targeting system can do. It's not as smooth. It's not as intuitive. It's not the same thing at all. Mega Man Legends. Okay, the lock-on system is only used for combat scenarios. Okay, the thing about Zelda's take on it, and why it's the industry standard and why it established the concept of Z targeting, is because of just how much more fleshed out and involved it was. How it felt how it was a real technical innovation, how it actually did so much more than what those games did. And this is very obvious if you've ever played Tomb Raider, if you've ever played Mega Man Legends, or if you played K-On! 2, or the games that people bring up during this. The way Zelda did it was completely different, which is why Nintendo filed a patent and is considered the inventor of the concept, because the other similar concepts were based on the same general idea, but did not do the same thing at all. Zelda is the one that became established as the industry giant. It's kind of like how Mario 64 is considered the innovator of 3D games, even though it's not technically the first 3D game, right? So Bubsy 3D came out before Mario 64, right? Because 3D games were taking off. Everyone knew this was the future. The issue is who's going to get to market first. So you have different teams coming out with different concepts, and so what happens is that Bubsy comes out before Mario 64, but it's complete garbage. It's unplayable. It's not interesting. Nobody likes it. And then Mario 64 comes out a little bit later and has really good controls, an innovative camera, analog stick. It was a major innovator in a lot of spaces. It's the same deal with the Z targeting system. Is that it is something completely new, original, nothing else like it. And earlier games that tried to implement similar concepts did not do it as well. It is not the same thing in any way, shape, and form. There are a lot of significant differences that distinguish their targeting systems versus the far superior Zelda targeting systems. What we now know as Z targeting, which of course is the industry standard and is of course what Zelda invented for The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. So similar ideas, similar concepts, but Zelda is the one that actually made it work and actually made it engaging. Tomb Raider isn't shit, okay? I really do need to go off on a tangent about the Tomb Raider thing, because I keep seeing people try and say this, that Tomb Raider was the big major innovator when it came to 3D games, and it was it invented lock-on, it invented 3D platforming. That's not true. It is not true. Nothing in Tomb Raider is as good as Super Mario 64 or The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. It is very basic, it is very simplistic, it is tits and ass the video game. It is complete slop. So I never want to hear Tomb Raider be brought up again in these discussions. It's not as good as Zelda. It is not as good as Mario, and that's the simple reality of it. So again, this is a major problem that we see in the gaming community, is just this very stubborn refusal to admit that Nintendo is indeed the market leader and is indeed the innovator. What they do is take very similar seeming concepts, the targeting system in Mega Man Legends, and then comparing it to Ocarina, and then saying that Legends did the same thing first, when in actuality, the targeting system in Zelda is radically different, more immersive, more intuitive, and can be used outside of combat scenarios. again, like, Zelda is what brought all of these elements together and invented the concept, essentially. So again, having like a vaguely similar concept, like like, oh yeah, Tower of Draga was a fantasy game, so Zelda must have been influenced by that. Like, it's the same argument, essentially. You're not talking about the actual execution of the system and what it actually means for video games. You're trying to like vaguely associate two relatively similar, distinct things and say that like Nintendo didn't innovate when they absolutely did. Like, again, this is obviously an attempt to try and downplay Nintendo's legacy, to try and create this narrative that secretly Nintendo was influenced by PC gaming the entire time. But, like, the simple fact of the matter is that it's not true, that Nintendo did innovate, that nothing on PC came close to the quality of Ocarina of Time before or after, and console gaming has taken over while PC gaming is dying, essentially. Like, that's just what we've been seeing over the past several years. So what I'm curious about is, like, at what point are people going to, like, notice these kind of things? Because, like, obviously people don't know the history of Z-targeting, and they don't know why Ocarina of Time is considered to be the innovator when it comes to that mechanic and that feature, and why Nintendo got the patent for it. They don't understand, like, the distinction between, like, Tomb Raider's lock-on system and what Zelda did to make it, like, an innovator. Like, again, and it doesn't really matter all that much, like, at its core. Like, there are reasons for it, because these features don't work the same way in any way, shape, or form. But, like, they'll never tell you that. The people who are pushing these arguments will never acknowledge Zelda's superiority. They just want to downplay Zelda and push this meme that, like, other games are somehow better or more influential or more innovative when they absolutely are not. And that's very obvious if you think about how nobody remembers classic Tomb Raider. Well, everybody remembers Ocarina of Time. The Tomb Raider remake got announced last year. And, like, who do you know who's as excited for that as, like, the Ocarina of Time remake that's being, like, rumored right now? I've seen, like, hype for the Ocarina of Time remake, like, that come up, like, several times over the past several years. Tomb Raider, never. And it's been, like, remade twice. Like, this is the second time. Like, Ocarina of Time, being remade is a way more exciting thing because people actually care about Ocarina. People actually remember Ocarina because they actually played Ocarina. Okay? Like, what we're seeing is just an attempt at damage controlling what is the most critically acclaimed game that established a template for, like, pretty much all games that would follow in the 3D space. Okay, it established the formula, it established the mechanics, it established the control schemes. Like, Ocarina of Time was so far beyond every other game that was coming out around that time that even today, we are still seeing its influence. And that's something that absolutely needs to be acknowledged and respected if you're a gaming fan. I have no patience for anybody who would imply that Nintendo took influence from, like, other developers during the creation of their project. They were working with similar ideas and concepts, and Nintendo simply perfected it before anybody else did.